he is involved in designing media materials for future space telescopes and other way cool stuff. Not to mention just an absolutely awesome person to work with, very intelligent man. Oh.
And so that's...
No.
This thing work? Let's see. This is the technical stuff. So while I'm getting this on, does that robot remind anybody of Boba Fett? So the story I heard the other day is everybody claimed that it had nothing to do with it, but apparently the designer who made the helmet had a big Boba Fett Star Wars coffee mug. So that's the real story. Right, and so here's Joe, and then that's his friend. And okay, so today I'm pleased to welcome you to the Advanced Technology Research Center. We also call it Maikalani. Maikalani is a Hawaiian word. Mai is knowledge, because the, and Lani means heaven. And literally it means knowledge we gain from the heavens, or knowledge we gain from the cosmos. Multidisciplinary, well, that's when you do a lot of stuff, which we do here, and I do. And knowledge is a combination of a bunch of things. So welcome to this brief overview talk before we do the laboratories tonight. You're at the Institute for Astronomy. We have, this is an overview graph, so I'm just going to, up figures and guess. Around 300 staff, 80 scientists, 40 faculty, 1,000 undergraduate students. I don't know how many PhD students, 30 or 40, and sites on 3 islands. It is a distributed institute. We're here on Maui. There are people without telescopes over here in Manoa. That's where most of the people are. Over on Mauna Kea, we're stewards of the land for the world's largest telescopes. And here we have some of the world's most innovative telescopes that are being developed, and our laboratories here. This is also a very old view graph, but I couldn't get the current figures. But astronomy has an astronomical economic impact. The astronomy-related infrastructure statewide is well over $1 billion. In the next few years, it'll be something like $2 billion, and within a decade, possibly as high as $4 billion with telescopes coming, with all the associated jobs that come with that in green high-tech technology, as well as all of this great knowledge that we can get from the cosmos. I'm going to zip through some of this quickly, but here was a comment that King Kalakaua made, that something of it when he went to Lick observatories over on the mainland, and he said, something of this kind is needed here very much, but we have so few people who take interest in scientific matters, everybody's bent on making money on sugar, an almighty dollar. And some of that is still true, but there are a lot of us who are very interested in green technology and science here. What we do is remote sensing and developing instrumentation. If you look outside, you see the grass is green. It absorbs light in the blue, the chlorophyll A at 442 nanometers, so it looks green. You can look at it and from a distance tell what it's made out of, or if it's dry and brown, there's not enough water. We do remote sensing. We measure things from a distance without touching them. We develop instrumentation and telescopes here. One of the main things that we do on Maui is novel off-axis telescopes, following the lead from Professor Jeff Kuhn, who will be giving a talk on how to find aliens later tonight. And so we develop telescopes. Oops. Let's see, how'd that work? Great. So a normal telescope, light comes into a big mirror, focuses to a secondary mirror and down through a hole, and you need things that support this mirror, and it scatters light, and they have worse contrast ratios. One thing we're doing here is developing novel off-axis telescope, where light comes in, goes off to the side, and then down. And an example of that is a telescope that is being developed by a team of scientists from around the world, including Sho, who's sitting right in back there, who's our friend from the University of Tohoku, and Professor Sho Okano. We have people from Germany and Mexico and Russia and Maui and other places involved. This is an interesting project that I am very honored to be a small part of, what we're trying to do is look at the light from planets around other stars. And when you look at a planet near another star, the star is anywhere from 1 million to 1 billion times brighter than the planet. And we can't even resolve a star. They are so tiny, they are a single pixel in the world's most powerful telescopes. But our goal is to tease information from the little bit of light that bounces off the planet to Earth, and in fact determine the atmospheric composition of these planets. Now, we're actually less than 2 years away from building this and achieving this scientific feat. Now imagine if you saw chlorophyll and variable methane and oxygen on a planet like that. You might say, gee, we've found life. And so that's certainly one of our goals. That's one of our interesting telescope missions. If you want a really cool big version of this that's quite different, come see Jeff Koons talk later on how to find aliens. And yes, we are actually working on this, although if there are reporters in the audience, I didn't really say that. We are studying the sun. If you're an astronomer or a physicist like I am, and you want to study how stars work, it makes sense to study the stars that are closest to you. And so we want to study the sun, because it dominates almost everything happening on Earth. There's an off-axis telescope being built on Haleakala called the Advanced Technology Solar Telescope. It's a $350 million project. About half of the money will stay on Maui and create jobs and infrastructure here. So we're pleased to see that, as well as really pushing the limits on understanding how stars work. There will be a telescope built in a few years on the Big Island, presumably. Very expensive, bad diffraction, 30-meter diameter mirror. It's called the 30-meter telescope. We have telescopes for locating asteroids and comets that could impact. So all of you have probably heard of the KT boundary, when a big impactor hit Earth and killed all the dinosaurs, and so hence my dinosaur graphic. The impact made a 150-mile wide, 150-kilometer crater, and in fact there may have been an impact about 250 million years ago that actually wiped out things that made it possible for the dinosaurs to rise. So there's a lot of stuff out there in space. Here's a model of the sun is at the center, and these are the objects that we know of. And actually, there are far, far more of them. But these are the objects we know of going around the Earth. Here's the asteroid belt going around the sun. So here's the Earth in this red line. And so there are a lot of things that cross the Earth and could hit and could be a potential threat. Did anybody hear about that thing in Russia last year? That wiped out. I wish I was in the glass business to replace glass. I'd be rich now. So anyway, how do you find these things? I'm going to give a little plug for CFON's talk later tonight. You find them with telescopes like Pan-STARRS. So we have 2 Pan-STARRS telescopes on top of the mountain. It's a great advance in surveying telescopes, and its job is to find asteroids and comets that could hit the Earth. It has an extremely large field of view. It's an extraordinary and unusual design for a telescope. It has a camera that has 1.4 billion pixels. It's about the size of a pizza box. So does anybody in here have an iPhone? Yeah. Well, Androids are better, right? So 8 megapixel camera, and so the chip is about the size of your fingernail. So this, until recently, was the largest camera in the world, and has 1.4 billion pixels, and the chip array is the size of a pizza box. That gives you an idea of the kinds of projects going on here. My personal interests are in things like space telescopes. You've all probably seen the Hubble Space Telescope, or the wonderful pictures from it. It's actually not that big. The primary mirror is only from me to you in diameter. It's only 8 feet wide and 94.5 inches wide. When I was at NASA, I worked on the James Webb Space Telescope, fantastically expensive and de-scoped and still not launched. And I've got an interest in these things, but I had a thought a long time ago. Photons weigh nothing. Why must space telescopes weigh tons just for the mirrors? Why do they have to be so heavy if they're deflecting these little photons that weigh nothing? And so I started looking at molecules that change shape when you apply light to them, so that we can try to make telescopes that are as thin as saran wrap, that weigh almost nothing. So I've been working on the technology where we would like to make a mirror the size of the Hubble mirror, that instead of weighing about a ton, would weigh 1 pound. And so that's one thing that's been going on here. This is an advanced metamaterial we've made. This is just a little thin strip of it to exacerbate the motion. We really want to make tiny changes, but the problem is you want a space telescope or any telescope mirror, it has to be a perfect shape to within a millionth of an inch. And when you come to the lab tour, I'll show you how you measure things to a millionth of an inch. And if too many people aren't walking or breathing too hard, we'll actually do a measurement like this. It's set up. So the problem is that means you have to make them thick and stiff and heavy, or you can make them thin if you could control their shape. So I'm going to show you this again. This is a material I made that will, oops. Okay, so this is a material I made that will change shape when you hit it with a beam of light. And so here I'm actively controlling the shape as it bends. Actually, I had a colleague make this piece for me, although we've been making some new hybrid materials like this recently on a previous project that went until May at the university here, and that's funded by NASA headquarters. And I have a little, so the idea is, I'm just going to show you my movie here. It works something like this. You have a mirror, it's not the right shape, you scan your laser beam over it, alter the polarization, the electric field of the beam, the intensity, and actively control the shape for your space telescope. So that membrane is about as thin as the sandwich wrap, thinner than what I had my sandwich in this afternoon. And so the idea is to make giant things that weigh very little. All right, so that gives you an idea of some of the technologies that are going on, are being developed here. And I'm going to do just a couple more minutes and then wrap up. This is to give you an idea. The technologies already exist for making large membranes but not shaping them, and so we'll just add some of my technology to things like this. This person is not really tall, but she's not a dwarf, and this is actually a 3.6 meter diameter mirror, quite a bit bigger than the Hubble. Here's a support structure that you would use for something the size of the James Webb Space Telescope, which again is $9 billion. I'm hoping we can use some chemicals and plastic and blow things up, inflate things, and make things like this, and include them with solar cells. I'm going to skip some of this very quickly. I'm going to give a quick plug for Dr. Gary Greenberg's talk. Does anybody recognize this picture? What is it? Yes, you, young man. That's right. And so the first thing Neil did when he went down the ladder is he reached down with his hand and grabbed some dust and stuck it in his pocket, just in case things went wrong. And so we actually have some of that particular contingency sample here at IFA. And we have other samples that we collected on this mission. No, I'm just kidding. This is just me in a lunar simulator. I didn't get to get them in, but okay, great. Made you guys laugh at least a little bit tonight. And so we have an experiment where we are looking at the 3D chemistry and 3D morphology shape of these materials. And so I encourage you to see our microscopy lab tonight. Dr. Gary Greenberg, who is, in my humble opinion, the best visible microscopist on the planet, is going to show you some very novel technology that only he has. Where if you cross your eyes and stare at that, you can see it in 3D. Really. So Gary will show you things like that in his lab tonight. The last 3 minutes before I end, I'm going to tell you something going on here on Maui that I'm involved in and I'm very concerned about. So besides all the stuff you heard before, and I help people out in the labs, I chair the Maui County Outdoor Lighting Standards Committee, and so we're concerned about light pollution. We're concerned about turtles. We're concerned about cancer for humans. We're concerned about destroying astronomy. And so I'm going to give you my 3-minute light pollution thing, because I was on the radio not long ago, and the guy interviewing me said, well, I didn't know light could pollute. And that's okay. I mean, people don't know. What is light pollution? It's an adverse effect from an artificial light. Here's the night sky with light pollution. Here's the night sky without light pollution over here. In Hawaii, people used to navigate with the stars. I learned to navigate with the stars when I was young. And If you go to Oahu, you'll see like 5 stars. You just can't do it. And so we have some of the darkest, best skies on Maui, but our skies are already 5 times the natural sky brightness of Maui, because we're getting light pollution here too. And there's energy waste. We waste something like 2 to 5 million barrels of oil a day. And they're talking about putting in white LEDs on Maui. This would be absolutely disastrous. So there are ways to do this, but I'm going to point out, here's a spectrum, and this shows how much of each power you have in each color. And so you guys have seen those glaring white LEDs. Do you like them? No. Okay, good, good. Yes, so when the vote comes up, we need you to come to council chambers or talk to your council members and go, blue light is bad. Yes, so anyway, there's a tremendous blue peak, whereas your eyes are most efficient here where I have this dotted line. So you have a lot of wasted light. And in fact, blue light scatters much more than redder light and will scatter all over the sky and make sky glow. And what you really want is to make, maybe 90% of your light where it doesn't scatter, and a lot of your light where your vision is very good in the green. Your vision is terrible in the blue, so why make all this blue light? Well, it turns out it has a lot of bad effects, but this is what the new white LEDs look like in their spectrum. Little birds, the endangered species birds, night-flying seabirds, for example, Newell shearwaters, dark-rumped petrels, they will go round and round in a circle until they die. In fact, Kauai was sued for violating the Endangered Species Act and the Migratory Birds Treaty Act. We're on the verge of causing some problems on Maui here. I'm a scuba diver. I like the little baby turtles. I like the big turtles. They're elegant. They fly underwater. They're beautiful creatures, and they're critically endangered in a lot of places in the world. Little baby turtles see the sky glow, and they go, instead of out to sea like they used to, they go inland, and they die. This is a serious issue. Blue light confuses all of these creatures. It turns out that you can make good LED lights where you only have a little tiny bit of blue light. And so we're hoping to have legislation passed on this that prohibits having just white light. And so I'm just mentioning it to you because it turns out it affects human health too. Blue light suppresses your melatonin, which helps you sleep. And it turns out melatonin is very important in tumorigenesis. And so there are all these new studies showing if you're exposed to blue light at night, are all sorts of cancers that you get. There have been a number of lawsuits in Europe about this. This is a serious issue that is now coming to light, so to speak. So if you talk to council or people like this or other people, there are ways to do this, but we have to have spectral power limits in our lighting. So to end my talk, I'm just going to tell you we were very fortunate to have the State Senate many years ago build these laboratories. I was fortunate to get a job working with really cool, nice people here, and we've developed a series of 8 laboratories in this building. And at the end of this talk, I will ask you, whoever can, come with me. We'll go through lab tours. We're going to do them all night. If it's cloudy out, I'll go late. But we have a very unique facility here. We have a 20-meter long optical path. We have light sources and a big mirror outside we can beam light in to test instruments. I'm going to show you in red things tonight. 3D printing, advanced metrology, some spectroscopy, and our microscopy laboratory. I mean, there are so many things. You have to spend more time than we have. I'm going to do a quick 5-minute lab tour, show you a few toys. With that, I'm going to say thank you, and do you have any questions? Yes, young man. Well, that's a great question. So since you can see this beach here, but clearly you can't see a planet like that from our beach. This is, a friend of mine made this for me, and this is, first of all, taken from another planet, hypothetically, right? Because you can tell this looks a bit like Maui, but we don't have a planet that looks quite like that. So it's not a planet we know of yet, but it's one we're going to find, and I would really like to go there. Any other questions? There's a fire hose talk. Yes, sir.
Does the low blue spectrum LED, is it the same amount of money to produce it?
They are the same amount of money, and in fact, you can get excellent color rendition as well. And we compute that the county of Maui would save approximately $1 million a year when shifting to LEDs, but the point is to do it carefully with the low blue spectrum. This way we can respect that the police want good color rendition for everybody, the astronomers want low blue light, and humans need low blue light. So the answer is, yeah, they're virtually the same price. Other questions? Yes?
Is there an easy way to keep up on all these issues that you brought up so that we can track it?
Talk to me tonight. You know, we should have, like, I'm not much of an activist. I'm going trying to help change the legislation. I talk to people. You know, you can go to council members and talk to them. Can you keep up? I don't know, scholar.google.com and see, you know, 1,000 articles this year on this problem. Talk to me. If you have interest in it, if you want to be an activist and help save turtles, yes, you know, we need you. But the point is, this is about human health as well. So, and if we went to white LEDs in 10 years, this is the third best spot on the planet for astronomy and often the best at night, we would have no more astronomy here in 10 years. It'll be like Oahu. That would be tragic. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you for coming. I welcome you to come down to the labs. The optics labs are on the left. Oh, yeah, you can clap. Right? Yeah, no. Thank you.